There comes a point in a man's life when the mirror starts lying to him. Society has trained you to believe that attractiveness belongs to youth, that relevance has an expiration date, and that aging is something to hide from rather than stand firmly within. Over time, that message sinks in quietly, and many older men begin to underestimate themselves, not because they've lost value, but because the world stopped reflecting it back to them in obvious ways. Yet what most people fail to recognize is that real attractiveness evolves, it deepens, it becomes less performative and more grounded. Being a good, looking older man has very little to do with perfect features or chasing validation. It shows up in how you carry yourself, how you regulate your emotions, how you no longer need to prove anything to anyone. It lives in your boundaries, your calm authority, and the self-respect you've earned through lived experience. The irony is this: the very qualities you may overlook in yourself are often the ones others notice immediately. Today is about recognizing those signs, not to inflate ego, but to restore perspective. Because confidence rooted in self-awareness is not loud, not desperate, and not borrowed. It is solid, unmistakable, and quietly powerful. Confidence that comes from experience is not something you announce. It does not need validation, applause, or permission to exist. It is formed quietly over years of observing patterns, surviving disappointment, learning who to trust, and understanding what no longer deserves your energy. This kind of confidence is embodied. It shows up in your posture, in your pacing, in your ability to listen without needing to interrupt or dominate. People sense it before you speak because it is grounded in certainty, not performance. As you move through life, you begin to realize that chaos does not need to be matched with reaction. You learn that not every challenge requires confrontation, and not every opinion deserves access to your emotions. This restraint is not weakness, it is discernment. When you stop over-explaining yourself, when you no longer rush to be liked, your presence becomes steady and self-contained. Others pick up on that calm, especially in a world that thrives on urgency and noise. Experience teaches you how to read rooms, how to recognize manipulation, and how to remain anchored when dynamics shift. You no longer confuse attention with respect or intensity with intimacy. You understand that power often exists in silence, in pauses, in knowing when to step back rather than push forward. This awareness reshapes how you occupy space. You are not trying to be impressive. You are simply being consistent, and consistency is deeply reassuring to those around you. There is also confidence in knowing your limits. Younger versions of yourself may have equated worth with endurance, with pushing past exhaustion or tolerating disrespect. Experience reframes that belief. You learn that boundaries are not walls, they are instructions for how you value yourself. When you enforce them calmly, without guilt or aggression, people notice. They may not name it, but they feel it. This is the kind of presence that commands respect without demanding it. Life experience also sharpens your emotional regulation. You have been through enough to know that most storms pass, and that panic rarely improves outcomes. When others react impulsively, your steadiness becomes a reference point. Your grounded responses create psychological safety, and that safety is profoundly attractive. It signals reliability, maturity, and self-trust. Over time, you stop chasing approval and start aligning with your values. That shift changes everything. Your decisions become clearer, your relationships more intentional, and your sense of self less negotiable. This alignment radiates outward. People feel it when you walk into a room, long before you speak, because confidence rooted in experience does not ask to be seen. It simply is aging with purpose, is not about resisting time, but about refining who you are through it. When maturity is intentional, It reshapes you from the inside out. You are no longer collecting years, you are collecting insight. Every experience, whether it brought success or disappointment, has carved clarity into your choices. This is what separates aging with intention from simply growing older. One leaves you bitter or resigned, the other leaves you grounded, selective, and quietly magnetic. With maturity comes discernment. You stop scattering your energy across people, roles, and expectations that do not align with your values. You understand that attention is a currency, and that where you place it determines the quality of your life. This selectiveness is often mistaken for distance, but in reality it is self-respect. You engage where it matters, and you disengage without drama where it does not. That clarity sharpens your appeal because it signals inner order in a world that is often chaotic. Purposeful aging also brings emotional economy. You no longer overinvest in proving yourself or correcting how others perceive you. You have learned that being misunderstood is survivable, and that peace is more valuable than constant explanation. This emotional containment gives you a steady presence. People sense that you are not easily destabilized, and that stability is deeply attractive. It communicates that you know who you are, and that you are not waiting for external permission to claim it. Your relationship with time changes as well. You stop rushing not because you lack ambition, but because you understand timing. You move with intention rather than urgency. This slower, more deliberate pace gives weight to your actions and words. When you speak, it is considered. When you commit, it is meaningful. That depth is a byproduct of lived experience and self-reflection, not surface-level charm. Maturity also sharpens your appeal through self-acceptance. You are less critical of your imperfections and more aware of your strengths. You carry your history without apology. The lines, the pauses, the quiet moments all tell a story of endurance and growth. Rather than diminishing you, they humanize you. Authenticity becomes your most compelling trait because it is no longer filtered through insecurity. A man who has aged with purpose is not chasing relevance, he embodies it. His presence reflects intention, emotional awareness, and self-trust. That kind of appeal does not fade with time. It becomes more concentrated, more refined, and more powerful as the years deepen its meaning. Quiet strength is built when you no longer need to announce your resilience to feel secure in it. It develops after life has tested you enough times to prove that survival does not require spectacle. Emotional control is not suppression, it is mastery. It is the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by those feelings, to respond rather than react, and to remain steady even when circumstances invite chaos. This inner regulation becomes visible long before it is explained, and it changes how others experience you. There was likely a time when attraction felt like something to pursue, to earn, or to perform for. Approval may have felt necessary, even urgent, but lived experience teaches you that chasing validation often comes at the cost of self-respect. Over time, you realize that when you stop seeking to be chosen, you start choosing yourself. That shift alters your energy. You no longer lean forward emotionally, you stand grounded, and that grounded presence is unmistakable. Emotional control allows you to disengage from power struggles without needing to win them. You recognize manipulation faster and refuse to feed it with reaction. When others escalate, you de-escalate. When they provoke, you pause. This calm is not passive, it is intentional. It signals that your sense of self is internally anchored, not dependent on external outcomes. People feel safer around this kind of strength because it is predictable and contained, not volatile or ego-driven. Quiet strength also reshapes how you handle conflict and connection. You no longer mistake intensity for intimacy or drama for depth. You understand that real bonds are built through consistency, accountability, and emotional presence. This awareness makes you selective, not closed. You invest where there is reciprocity and withdraw where there is disrespect, without theatrics or explanation. That ability to walk away without bitterness reflects deep self-trust. There is also attraction in how you hold space for others without absorbing their emotional chaos. You listen without fixing, empathize without rescuing, and remain present without losing yourself. This balance is rare. It communicates maturity and psychological stability, qualities that are felt immediately even if they are never named. When you stop chasing attraction, it changes form. It becomes quieter, steadier, and more authentic. It shows up in how people gravitate toward your calm, how they seek your perspective, how your presence lowers the emotional temperature in a room. Quiet strength does not demand attention, but it naturally draws it, because emotional control is not just a personal skill. It is a form of leadership that others instinctively recognize and respond to. The definition of male attractiveness changes when respect, wisdom, and self-worth take lead. This shift does not happen overnight. It is earned through lived experience, reflection, and the courage to outgrow outdated expectations. At this stage of life, appeal is no longer rooted in dominance, appearance, or constant achievement. It is grounded in how you treat yourself and how consistently that self-respect shows up in your interactions with others. Respect begins internally. When you stop tolerating what diminishes you, when you no longer negotiate your boundaries to keep the peace, you communicate something powerful without saying a word. People respond to how you value yourself. They sense when your yes is intentional and your no is firm. This internal alignment reshapes how others engage with you, because respect that is not demanded but embodied carries weight. Wisdom adds depth to that presence. It shows up in perspective, not superiority. You have learned that life is rarely black and white, and that understanding context matters more than winning arguments. You listen differently now. You pause before responding. You recognize patterns in people and situations, and choose your involvement accordingly. This discernment signals emotional intelligence, which has become one of the most compelling forms of attractiveness. It tells others that you are not reactive, not reckless, and not easily swayed. Self-worth ties it all together. It is no longer dependent on productivity, approval, or comparison. You understand that your value is inherent, not conditional. This realization changes how you show up in relationships. You no longer overextend to feel needed or shrink to be accepted. You bring your full self into spaces without needing to dominate them. That grounded authenticity is rare, and rarity draws attention. This new standard of attractiveness is quiet but unmistakable. It is felt in your consistency, your reliability, and your ability to remain emotionally present without losing yourself. It shows in how you handle disagreement with composure and how you offer guidance without control. People trust men who know who they are, because that clarity creates psychological safety. You may notice that others seek your opinion more, value your time differently, and respond to your boundaries with greater care. Not because you demand it, but because you model it. Respect, wisdom, and self-worth create a presence that is not flashy but enduring. It is the kind of attractiveness that does not fade with trends or time, because it is rooted in character. This is not about perfection. It is about integrity. It is about knowing your limits, honoring your growth, and standing firmly in your values. When these qualities align, they redefine what it means to be attractive as a man, creating a standard that is calmer, deeper, and far more powerful than anything you once chased or tried to prove, because real attractiveness now lives in the way you respect yourself, understand others, and move through the world with a sense of earned certainty that cannot be taken away and does not need to be explained at some point, you realize that attractiveness was never something you lost with age. It was something that matured alongside you. What once relied on effort now rests in presence. What once needed validation now stands on self-knowledge. This stage of life is not about reclaiming youth, but about owning depth. You carry stories, lessons, and discernment that cannot be replicated, and that substance changes how you move, speak, and choose. You no longer measure yourself by external applause or fleeting attention. You understand that being grounded, emotionally aware, and self-respecting creates a form of appeal that is stable and enduring. The calm you bring into spaces, the boundaries you uphold, and the consistency you embody all speak louder than appearance ever could. People respond not just to how you look, but to how safe, steady, and authentic they feel around you. This is the quiet reward of growth. You are not invisible, you are refined. You are not overlooked, you are selective. And the confidence you now carry does not need to convince anyone of its worth. It simply exists, rooted in experience, shaped by purpose, and strengthened by self-trust, reminding you that becoming is far more powerful than proving, and that the most compelling version of you is the one who stands fully at peace with who he has become.